This week on Full Circle Florida, Trump 2.0. What is different this time around, from his cabinet selections to the people behind the scenes? The Florida connection from Trump himself to Marco Rubio, picked for his Secretary of State, Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, and Susie Wiles, Trump's Chief of Staff. The growing role of the Sunshine State in the corridors of power. And the postmortem, the Florida Democratic Party taking inventory on its losses. Will anything or anyone change going forward? Our Capitol reporter, For Saunders, on the anatomy of defeat. But let's start with the new Trump, the new White House, and the new expectations. Welcome in, everyone, here to Full Circle Florida. Donald Trump made a lot of promises about the economy on the campaign trail, and now it's time to deliver. But what exactly does that look like? Here's my conversation this week with Aaron Cirksena, the CEO of Modern Capital.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond.
How do you believe a second Trump presidency would impact the overall U.S. economy?
Yeah, I think honestly we're seeing some of the impact right now already in the stock market popping the way that it has. I think at least short term, it's looking like things are going to be favorable because I think the market is pricing in a lot of deregulation under a Trump administration. I think it's pricing in probably an extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and probably even potentially lower corporate taxes. So, we'll see if those things all play out according to plan. But right now it seems to be that the market is liking it.
Would a Trump presidency benefit the stock market more than the job market, or are those two things not necessarily mutually exclusive?
They're not necessarily going to be mutually exclusive. I think the stock market likes all of those things that I just mentioned, right? Lower corporate taxes, which can mean higher profits for corporations, deregulation, which is lower costs on corporations, obviously. But I think the jobs market and the stock market can act somewhat independently of one another. I think that's probably what we're going to be seeing throughout the next few months.
And how do you think President Trump's trade policies and tariffs will shape the U.S. economy? Would more tariffs not lead to more inflation?
I think that's honestly the biggest concern that people have under a Trump administration, is that if we have tariffs, right, long term, could it benefit the U.S. economy by shoring up our logistics supply chain? Sure. But short term, is it going to cause inflation to sort of rear its ugly head? It's to be determined up to this point, but yes, it's definitely possible that if we have severe tariffs put on countries like China and other countries, it could potentially lead to the costs of goods going up for at least a short period of time.
And what are some of the other unforeseen consequences or risk in a second Trump presidency? Is there anything that you see being a potential risk with his style of governing? He looks to be wanting to shake things up and change how Washington operates, and you just wonder, how does that translate to the everyday American?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to the biggest concern that people have, which is potentially inflation coming back and just further government spending, right? And running up a higher tab of government debt, basically. Trump and the Republicans generally want to think that if you have lower taxes but a higher revenue base to tax on, basically increasing the overall economic output of the country, that one will over equal the other. We just have to see as his presidency goes on if that's going to end up being the case. But I think inflation and just over government spending are going to be the two big concerns that people have under his presidency.
All things to be determined. Eric Cirksena, thank you for your insight. Appreciate it. Next on Full Circle Florida, the picks are in, and so is the reaction to Trump's cabinet selections. Plus, what is different this time around?